All Indiana Politics is your premier source for Indiana politics, focusing on issues that matter to you.
I still want us to be the best in the Midwest.
We can't afford another lockdown.
Give the citizens of this country the relief they need.
Education in the state of Indiana remains priority number one.
In-depth, nonpartisan coverage.
We don't know exactly where the economy will be in January.
People are worried with good reason.
Exclusive interviews with Indiana's political leaders.
We have the resources here in the state of Indiana to care for those who are in need.
Expert analysis on critical legislation.
We need to reform those laws.
This recovery is going to take some time.
We've got to anticipate that there'll be a budget shortfall.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network.
Good morning and welcome to another edition of All Indiana Politics on this Sunday. I'm Phil Sanchez. Let's start today with the major changes to that bill that would limit what could be taught about race in Indiana classrooms. Senate Republicans stripped some of the most controversial provisions. Parents would no longer be allowed to sue teachers over content. Teachers would not have to post classroom lessons online, and the new version eliminates parent review committees. State Senator Linda Rogers authored the changes.
We all have to acknowledge that we're all created equal and that we don't want teachers, mentioning something that, as an example, that because they're a certain race or ethnicity, that, someone's better, superior or inferior. And so I think there are concepts that really everybody can get behind. And I don't believe that they are always being taught, not at all. I don't want to disparage teachers. We have amazing teachers throughout the state.
I know you removed the language that involves discomfort and guilt. What was the logic behind that decision?
Well, I think that's hard to determine, and I think, there's things in life that make you uncomfortable, and so how do you regulate that? That really isn't, in my opinion, something that we as legislators should be regulating.
Can you blame the leaders of the past for what happened?
No, I don't believe you should. If somebody did something in the past that was wrong, you would. I guess I don't like to throw blame without knowing and having been there. I mean, we can say that we don't particularly like what happened in the past, and you mentioned slavery. I mean, I would assume that everybody understands that that really was not a pleasant part of our past.
So you can't blame the supporters of, say, Jim Crow laws, of segregationists, for what happened in the past in America?
Well, you can maybe blame them, but you can't blame people today.
So how do you square that with saying, okay, but here are the echoes of that? How do you say, well, how can teachers say, well, here are the after effects that linger from that without running afoul of some language in this bill?
Well, I think it's pretty clear, and I really don't believe that the way that it's written today is really going to affect that. And certainly, as we move forward with this, I'm happy to look at to see if the language needs to be tweaked and, so that it's clear and understandable for everyone.
What would you say to teachers who are still finding this bill problematic?
I have listened to teachers over the last 3 or 4 weeks. This bill is not in final form. I met with teachers from my community this morning and were wonderful and gave me some suggestions. And so I'm going to continue to listen to educators, parents, all the professionals, so that we end up in a place that people can get behind and say we're doing the right thing, because we're really talking about who's our children and wanting to make sure that they get the best education possible.
Let's welcome Keith Gamble, the president of the Indiana State Teachers Association. Keith, thank you for being with us this afternoon.
Happy to be here.
Now, Keith, from the position of the ISTA, has the education curriculum bill, has enough been cut out of it, or do legislators still have some work to do?
We still have work that needs to be done. As we were combing through the amendment, there are still some sections that we believe aren't quite right, and some that kind of contradict one another, and believe that there's still work that has to be done.
Now, you have talked to teachers all over the state. Does the bill actually address the lessons that are being taught in the classroom?
No, we don't think that what is happening in our classrooms is reflective of what is occurring with the bill. And in fact, we believe that in many cases, it will create issues for teachers in being able to present their materials. And in some other cases, such as our advanced placement courses and dual credit, which are guided both by advanced placement organizations and the universities that bestow the college credit, that there is actually some conflict within the bill that would negatively impact those courses.
Now, we have heard several times that teachers might be afraid to teach some of the curriculum that's outlined in this bill. Is that what you're hearing from your members?
Yes, and many are concerned that that they will begin to kind of avoid subjects, to not welcome in conversation of students, to avoid current events, or not dig deep into them, and to really guide just general class conversation in a very different way.
Are teachers being targeted right now?
Well, this certainly very much feels that way. You know, the state made a lot of progress in trying to do something about our teacher shortage last year when they really pushed for additional money into the system so that we could increase teacher pay. But then this session comes along, and now we're in targeting the way in which instruction occurs, and putting in some instances that could fracture the parent and teacher relationship.
I know you've been active in the State House for a number of years, and I know that this past Wednesday you were a little frustrated by the number of people that came to the State House and how many actually got to testify.
Certainly. There were well over 100 folks that were registered to speak to lawmakers, and specifically to this committee about the issues that they have with the amendment, which that was passed first. And so testimony was only directed toward that amendment. And folks wanted to make sure that that committee knew where they were still finding trouble spots.
The session is getting ready to wrap up in just a couple of weeks or so. You've got a really narrow window on your message to the legislators. What do you have to say to them right now?
Well, as it relates to 1134, we believe that the work there needs to slow down, and we need to step back, take a breath, take a look at the language there, and really decide what is the problem that is trying to be solved in this legislation. And that's at the crux of the work. And if that means that we need to vote this down and work on new legislation, legislators meet with school district officials and teachers to make sure that they get it right, perhaps even a summer study committee. Because it's important that we aren't putting in a situation where students' education is harmed, or that we fracture that relationship between parents and the school community.
What happens to schools if this bill is passed as it stands right now?
As it stands right now, we are concerned with some of the social emotional learning components, especially parts that we believe contradict one another in that, which will cause school districts to question exactly how they get resources to students. We have concerns about some of the course offerings that schools currently have, guidance on how to lead conversations with students, especially around current events and other materials. So those are all of the parts of this that we have concerns with.
Keith Gamble, President of Indiana State Teachers Association, will check in with you when the session wraps up. Thank you for your time.
Very good. Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. Well, the Senate Education Committee has not voted on the bill yet. That could happen this week, although the committee has not announced a meeting time or agenda. Coming up, top Republican agenda items in the legislature shot down by fellow Republicans. Our Garrett Berquist takes you inside the State House debates next on All Indiana Politics. And welcome back to All Indiana Politics. The biggest threat to House Republicans' legislative agenda has turned out to be Senate Republicans. All this week, Senate panels gutted some of the most contentious bills from the House. News 8's Garrett Berquist has that part of our coverage.
3 priority bills got watered down in as many days. The bill to ban employer vaccine mandates, a tax cut bill, and the school curriculum bill. I asked if this was a sign the House needs to dial it back.
Members of your party on the other side of the building gutted some of these priority issues. Is that a suggestion that maybe some of your initial ideas on this went a little too far?
No, I think it was just it's a balance in this chamber. It's what makes this place great, right? Is you got a lot of different people, a lot of different opinions and thoughts, and it's not uncommon that the two chambers have differences of opinions, and we'll work through them. And I feel good about that. I mean, we'll try and get to the right spot. We'll see where we end up.
It signals that we have a different opinion. We're going to do what we think is the right thing on all those important bills, and the House is keeping a close eye on them. I'm in constant conversation with the Speaker about them, and I've asked the chairman of each of those committees, along with the sponsor and author of those bills, to continue to have dialogue. And yes, they're different. They're going to come out of the Senate a little bit different. We'll figure out a way to make it work by the end, and I'm really pleased with the way those conversations are going right now.
For their part, Democrats in both chambers say they appreciate the Senate's approach.
I'm actually glad to see, obviously, the Senate taking a more pragmatic approach to these issues and listening to folks and what they have to say. And I know that's really kind of how the process works. That's how bills are vetted. But obviously, we've been talking about these now for almost 4 months.
Well, I've always said we're a little bit more pragmatic than my colleagues over in the House. I won't take too much credit, but I think it's a combination of me and being able to work with the President Pro Tem to say, hey, you could bring this forward, but I'm just going to tell you, here's the game plan if you do. A combination of that and having a lot more what I've determined to be pragmatic discussions about whether or not this is going to be important for all Hoosiers. And I think that President Pro Tem Bray has listened a little bit and talked to his chairs about what they can bring forward.
We should note none of the priority House Republican bills have come up for a floor vote in the Senate yet. There could be further changes on the Senate floor, and the House is almost certain to send those bills to conference committee when they come back from the upper chamber. At the State House, Garrett Bergquist, Wish TV, wishtv.com, and follow us on Facebook.
All right, coming up, our political experts standing by to give their take on what's happening in the General Assembly. That's next on All Indiana Politics. Welcome back to All Indiana Politics on this Sunday as we welcome back Democrat Brian Gaddy and Mario Massalamani, the newly elected chairman of the Hamilton County Republican Party. Congratulations to you, Mario. Let's start with that education curriculum bill in the Senate. Mario, you first here. Is this a solution in a search of a problem, or is this really an issue here in Indiana schools?
Well, the bill, I think, addressed many of the issues that people were facing and seeing. The biggest problem, I think, that now that it's in the Senate, I believe that there's some amendments that have been introduced that are going to neuter that bill. And so it's really going to impact and basically water down this bill to make it really not do anything. And so I know that there's a lot of people frustrated with some of the amendments that are being discussed and thrown around. The bill that passed out of the House was an effective bill. People were calling it a parents' rights bill. Because it gave more transparency to parents to understand what the curriculum was that their kids are being taught. COVID brought about a huge change in parents' view of what their kids are being taught because they actually got to see their kids being taught in the kitchen or in the living room because the kids were on virtual devices, electronic devices, and they were hearing the curriculum. And that's one of the reasons for the bringing about of this bill. And so the biggest concern right now is what's going to happen in the Senate.
Brian, your response?
Well, first of all, the concern of the Republicans, I don't really understand it should be a concern at all because CRT is not being taught at K through 12. CRT is being taught at law schools. And an esteemed a law professor here in our state and a good friend of mine, Professor Kevin Brown of the IU School of Law, Bloomington, Mars School of Law, actually met with lawmakers and was discussing that. Professor Brown was explaining to them that CRT is taught to law students. Now, Mario is a lawyer. I'm a businessman, so he knows he should know this better than any of us being an attorney. He knows that CRT is not being taught at K through 12.
So wait a minute, Brian, let me push back here for a moment. If it's not being taught, then why the pushback on the bill?
Why? Because the Republicans want a wedge issue. I mean, come on, Phil. It's election season. They got to have an issue they can run on to rile up their base and to paint us Democrats as wild left-wingers and trying to subvert wholesome American values and all this other stuff that they like to do at election season. The point is CRT is not being taught at K through 12.
Okay, so Mario, let me let you jump in here. Do you think this is this really politics? Hold on, Brian. Hold on, Mario. Go ahead.
Phil, you make a great point. If CRT is not being taught in the middle schools and grade schools, then why does the teachers union and the Democrats object to this bill so much? Why are they pushing so hard on Senate Republicans to try and water down this bill? If CRT is not being taught, then they shouldn't care about the language in this bill, making sure that CRT and SEL and other things like that are not being taught. But this bill doesn't just address those issues.
So does it give the impression, though, that teachers are doing this and teaching this, or are they being targeted? Brian, go ahead.
Teachers are being targeted by Republicans. But I'll tell you this, teachers are a very strong constituency in this state. And the last time Republicans attacked teachers, they came out in droves and voted very heavily for us Democrats. So if they want to keep attacking teachers, I think they'll pay for it at the ballot box.
And Phil, here's the thing. We're not attacking teachers. Republicans are not attacking teachers at all. We love teachers. We respect what they do. They have a hard job. The problem is there are some rogue teachers that want to push their own agenda. And so this bill is there to protect that. Additionally, there's a lot of different transparency things within this bill. It's just not a CRT bill. There's issues as it pertains to, my law firm has sued schools before to make sure that IEPs, individualized education plans, are properly conducted and students have the proper resources necessary to be taught. This bill allows for us to address those issues with a neutral third party, the Department of Education within the state of Indiana. So there are a variety of different key points within this bill that I think make it a parents' rights bill and not just a CRT bill. I think that, Democrats and certain people want to try and paint this as a CRT bill or a racist bill or something like that. That's just name calling. If you look at the language of this bill, there's so many different aspects of this bill that protect the rights of parents and students. And I think that ideally this will help both parents and students. People have always said, why are parents not more involved in their kids' lives as it pertains to schools? Now they're saying, we don't want you involved in the schools. And
Democrats are not saying.
All right, well, hold on. Before we run out of time, I want to get to another topic, but Brian, I'll let you jump in and respond to that because we're going really far into the weeds.
Saying
Go ahead.
that. Mario's saying that. We have never said we don't want teachers and parents involved with their children's education. What we're saying is that this is a solution in search of a problem. CRT is not being taught at K through 12. If your fifth graders in law school, then you have to worry about it. Unless your fifth graders in law school, you've got nothing to worry about.
Okay, I have a fifth grader. We haven't seen anything like that in my household. So
absolutely.
Here we go. Let's move on here. We've seen a lot of action this week on Ukraine. How has President Biden handled the situation so far? Brian, we'll go to you first on this one.
I think President Biden's doing a great job. Quite frankly, he knows that there's an American president that's not going to kowtow and knuckle under to him, Vladimir Putin, like the last president, the former guy, twice impeached, Donald Trump. Remember the Helsinki summit where Vladimir Putin literally left out of there like a cat who swallowed a canary with a smile on his face, and Trump looked like a whip dog. He looked really sad and pathetic. We've got an American president and President Biden who will stand up to the dictator Putin. So I think President Biden's doing a great job. And he's also
Mario, 30 seconds to you. Close us out here, sir.
Thank you, Phil. It's a wait and see as to how Biden does. Ukraine was the third largest nuclear power when the Soviet Union disbanded. They gave up all their nuclear arsenal because the U.S. and Europe promised to protect them if Russia was aggressive. Let's see if these other countries like Europe and U.S. Hold themselves up to the task of protecting Ukraine.
The soldiers into Poland.
All right, gentlemen. Hey, good conversation as always. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. We'll be right back.
Hey, thank you.
Take All Indiana Politics on the go with you. Download our podcast now. Part of the All Indiana Podcast Network and allindianapodcastnetwork.com.
And thank you for joining us for this All Indiana Politics on this Sunday. Garrett Berquist will be with the legislature again all week covering the new developments there. We'll be back here next Sunday morning at 9:30. Have a great rest of your weekend.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Watch All Indiana Politics live Sunday mornings at 9:30 on Wish TV and at wishtv.com. Subscribe to this podcast and listen weekly here on the All Indiana Podcast Network. And be sure to discover even more great podcasts at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.